Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth episode of Sports Zone on our new virtual platform. I have with me two analysts, Zachary Fox and the college football expert himself, Connor Hibbett, which will come into play about what we will be talking about today, which is the best night of the year for football, the NFL Draft Round 1. Zach, I'm going to start with you. Let's look at this as more of a broader thing here. What were some trends and some patterns that you saw early on in this draft during round one?
Well, obviously, teams trying to play at their strengths and what they are missing. Cincinnati Bengals, obviously, got to take Joe Burrow. You're looking for a cornerstone quarterback after Andy Dalton. You missed the playoffs. You miss a playoff win for the last 29 seasons, an NFL record. You tend to start looking in other directions, and you look for the number one pick, Joe Burrow. I believe they did that, as well as many other teams lacking a quarterback, lacking offensive linemen. A lot of teams play to their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and try to use that as a strength. I also realized that a lot of them went the defensive route, particularly early on from Ohio State. Ohio State technically with their name in the first three picks. Joe Burrow obviously transferring from Ohio State, and then the next two, Chase Young and Okudah. Right now, statistics show Ohio State is absolutely a gold mine when it comes to bringing cornerbacks out of their system. 21 cornerbacks have been drafted since 1991 coming out of the Ohio State University. So lots of good news for them and for years to come, what it looks like. But a lot of things played out probably what we could have picked, at least for the first 10 picks. And for most of round one, things played out pretty well as far as projections go. But I see a pattern that teams are sticking to the game plan and seeing what is that lacking puzzle piece, and let's see if we can grab them.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think that teams really stayed focused on what they needed and what was projected for them. I didn't really see anything that was out of the blue. Most of the time before the pick was in, I'm like, "Hey, I expect them to grab this guy," and more than likely they did. So Connor, now I'll ask you, what was the most shocking picks or most unexpected picks that you weren't really expecting for teams to pick up, and which ones were you kind of expecting that you think are going to be a good fit for them?
Well, the most surprising thing to me, I wasn't shocked with any particular pick more than the order for me. When I saw Jordan Brooks, the linebacker from Texas Tech, go before Patrick Queen, the linebacker from LSU, I was a little bit surprised by that. Patrick Queen had shown complete dominance in the last month of the season. He had showed so much improvement from the middle of the season, right around the time of the Auburn game from LSU, for LSU season, all the way to the national championship game, in which he made a couple of tackles. In fact, one touchdown-saving tackle on a screen pass to Travis Etienne early in the third quarter in that game. So Patrick Queen, he has incredible athleticism. He can go sideline to sideline tackling players, and his awareness on the field is incredible. He knows how to blitz, when to blitz. Some linebackers just have that instinct, and he's definitely one of them. When he sees the hole in the offensive line, when he sees the gap, he attacks it. He also knows how to play the run and the pass very well. And again, his tackling is off the charts. Jordan Brooks is a little bit of an undersized linebacker, in my opinion, especially for his position. But coming out of the Big 12, he definitely has some speed. His 40-yard dash time wasn't the fastest. I believe it was a 4.54, but it was still pretty fast. But to me, he does not have the upside that Patrick Queen has from LSU. Now, I know that to others, Jordan Love out of Utah State might have been a little bit of a shocking pick. But to me, he shows the athleticism that Patrick Queen or that Patrick Mahomes does. He has incredible upside. When he's moving to his left, he can still throw across the field and across his body and still make it a very accurate throw. To me, he has the most upside that I have seen since Patrick Mahomes, and before him, since Johnny Manziel, when it comes to throwing and the running game. Now, quarterbacks like a Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. To me, Kyler Murray has an incredible arm, incredible speed, obviously, but Jordan Love has a better stature for the NFL. So I believe he can sustain the success longer than what Kyler Murray could. The only question I have for Jordan Love is the mental part of the game and the little things. not forcing the issue. He had 17 interceptions this past season in college football, which was the most in the FBS. That's 130 teams, and that's more than 130 quarterbacks. So he has to cut down the interceptions. But again, he has incredible athleticism, and learning from one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game, and Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure he'll learn whether Aaron Rodgers teaches him or whether he learns from him. He's going to develop into, I believe, a very good quarterback for the NFL's future in the next 4 or 5 years.
No, I definitely have to touch on that because I feel like you're the only one that's on my side with that, and you're not even a Green Bay fan. All the other Green Bay fans I've talked about, they're like, it's the worst mistake. We needed so many other things. And they're right, we're like Swiss cheese in every aspect of the game. We need linemen, we need a couple more receivers. And, I think that I called it from a week ago that they're going to grab a quarterback because the thing is that there's no telling. It's very evident. Aaron Rodgers is getting old, just like all the other quarterbacks that we know and love. Drew Brees is getting old. Tom Brady is getting old. And if Aaron Rodgers goes down, I want someone who is capable of throwing the football. And I just don't think that any backup quarterbacks that Green Bay has right now is that capable. They picked up a backup quarterback a few years ago and he was a bust. And I think that they didn't want to replay that. So I agree with you. I think Jordan Love can learn a lot from Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's going to be learning a lot from way back because Aaron Rodgers doesn't like to share his time, and it's been said and it's been shown that it is the Aaron Rodgers show. But let's look a little more local to Texas. The Cowboys picked up CeeDee Lamb, arguably one of the best receivers in this draft class. Zach, what do you think of CeeDee Lamb's position here with the Cowboys?
Honestly, to begin with, I didn't know if I liked it or not. I had mixed feelings saying that we should go more defensively. You look at our 2018 season, the Dallas Cowboys, one of the best defenses. Then you come in last year, and it's a completely total different picture. And so I was thinking, well, maybe, you have all the offensive firepower, a lot more than other teams at the moment. You just got to complete those passes and put the pieces together. But the defensive side of things definitely needed to progress. And I was expecting some sort of linebacker or safety, please. But Jerry Jones took it a different route. He takes up CeeDee Lamb, one of the best wide receivers in the country from Oklahoma. And he will be under the wing of Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, and he is foretold to be the next number one receiver on this Dallas Cowboys core. So he is looked at for a future reference. So the Cowboys, they drafted the best player, but not the most needed player at the moment. So for the next few rounds here, I expect if the Cowboys are smart in this and they legit want to be Super Bowl contenders yet again, they got to think defensively for the rest of these rounds, or at least offensive line. We know the offensive line is even wearing thin. Travis Frederick gone, and we've had injuries on the line. You got to start looking at that as well. I think the wide receiver core is stacked. You got your quarterback. He just needs to experience. He had a great first year, and he has definitely taken a tank. So he needs to use the weapons that the Cowboys have thankfully given him, and that's more wide receivers. Can you hit them? Let's hope so, because I think if the Cowboys can make big plays on offense, they're going to be a force to reckon with. However, you can't win the championship without the defense. The defense has got to be the mentality from here on out, in my opinion. And if you got to go with an offensive line, hey, that's fine too. But I think that's the mindset at the moment. Overall, great pick. I think it's an A- pick with CeeDee Lamb.
No, I definitely agree with you. I'm kind of looking at the way that the Cowboys wanted CeeDee Lamb just so that Philly wouldn't have him. I do agree with you. I think they needed more defense. I think, after having paid Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, you have those weapons already. But is CeeDee Lamb a replacement for Randall Cobb, who is able to track those long passes into the end zone? Because if you see highlights on CeeDee Lamb, that's kind of his specialty. He runs out and he tracks those long passes and catches them very, very well. So, Connor, I'd like to hear your side of things. Do you think that the Cowboys really needed him and really wanted him, or do you think that they grabbed him just so that Philly wouldn't get him?
Need, want, I would say need, no. Want, absolutely. He's an incredible receiver. Oklahoma always develops some of the best receivers in the country. But this past season, I thought that their receiving core was not quite as good as it was in years past. And so what I'm trying to get to here is with CD, you knew that he was going to be getting the ball in the certain obvious passing situations, and yet he was still beating guys when he was triple teamed and double teamed. It reminded me a lot of Amari Cooper when he was at Alabama with Blake Sims in 2014, when you knew it was going to him, but yet you couldn't stop him. So CeeDee Lamb to me is a tremendous receiver, and he actually had a very good game against LSU in the Peach Bowl, the only player for Oklahoma that really had a decent game. But he's a tremendous athlete. He can go up and get the ball, and you're right, he can track down the long passes. But what I've also seen from him is that he's kind of like that guy that reminds me of when you're playing football in the backyard with your neighborhood friends, and he's like that one guy you can't cover because not only does he have incredible athleticism, but he has a second feel for the game. And he has that feel for the game, and I think Jerry Jones and the Cowboys saw that out of him. But Zach, I do agree with you. I think what the Cowboys should have gone with was defense. To win a championship, you have to have both sides of the football. You can't have a weakness, an outright weakness. If you have a great strength, that's awesome, but you can't have any weaknesses. Honestly, it's better to be good in all phases than to be great and then bad in another. So I'm not saying their defense is going to be bad. I'm just saying as of right now, the offense is definitely looking like the strength of the team, while the defense looks like the weak link. And to be able to not have a weaker area of your football team, they need to start to draft defensive players. And the first one that comes to mind for the Cowboys, if he's available, would be Christian Fulton out of LSU, because corner and defensive ends are the two biggest needs for the Cowboys defense. Kelvon Chason would have been an excellent pick at 17 had they gone with him. But hey, again, CeeDee Lamb is a great pick, CD for the TD, but the problem will be the defenses giving up those TDs as well. And if they don't want to, I suggest getting a really, really good corner who can play great man coverage, and that's Christian Fulton. And to add on to that, the Cowboys in the past I've seen have gone with LSU corners like Morris Claiborne several years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with Christian Fulton if he's available.
I think that at the beginning of last season, the Cowboys defense, it was young, it was kind of fresh, and then it kind of like took that stride of just not ending up how you thought it would be, like the whole entire team did. I do agree with you that the offense is stacked and they're very one-sided on one side of the football. But at the same time, we already touched on it, and I kind of made a comment while Zachary was talking, was that Dak Prescott has been acting up. He's been acting up ever since they decided to franchise tag him. So, Zach, I'll ask you this now. Do you think that everything that they're doing, they spent a ton of money on Amari Cooper, they just picked up CeeDee Lamb. Do you think that's even going to mean anything if Dak Prescott isn't going to play to his ability?
Well, obviously not. If you're going to overthrow or underthrow a receiver every time, there's only so much a receiver can do. Because whether the Cowboys take a defensive player or not, all the defensive players go to all the remaining teams in the NFL. And guess what? They're going to have to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And if you're going to throw interceptions into their hands rather than into your own receiver's hands, it's not going to look good. So Prescott, he's got to be able to go into the – I hope he is working his tail off here in the offseason, improving on his accuracy, because heading into this next season with all this firepower, what more excuse is there? Jason Garrett's gone. Can't have that excuse. I mean, got another receiver core and to add with that core. I mean, there's not
Yeah, honestly, like if he doesn't do anything, they're gonna just give him the boot at this point.
You may have to. So now I'm trying, you start thinking, do you pull some sort of Packers thing right now and just go ahead and draft a quarterback, maybe late in the rounds, whoever's left, and see if they can warm him up? Or do you think Cooper Rush is legit ready to back up Dak Prescott? In my opinion, Cooper Rush is not ready. So, you kind of pin with what you have and weigh your options at the moment. But to go back to your recent question, is that if he continues with the streak that he's on right now, even with all this firepower, will it be successful? Obviously not.
All right, Connor, I want to talk a little bit about how it took 12 picks for even one trade to happen. Why do you think that happened?
Um, well, I mean, it's a different kind of draft this year. You have a virtual draft. I'm sure that had a little bit to do with it, but I think honestly, more of it had to do with how the elite players this year stacked up against years past. In fact, I saw somebody came out a few hours ago and said that tonight's second round will be the most talented second round in NFL draft history because of how elite that first round was, and especially those first 10, 12 players. And because of that, I think it's so straightforward with the teams who already had those slots and who they were selecting for the draft. It was so straightforward. I mean, who were you going to trade up, or who would you want to change? I mean, they already had their minds made up of who they wanted for the last month to two, and things weren't going to change. When you have those elite players in the top 10, I mean, when you can't compare, it's kind of like Joe Burrow with Cincinnati. Why would they want to have anybody else? Because it's Joe Burrow. And then with Chase Young, why would you want anybody else? It's Chase Young. And then same with Okudah. You had some great, tremendous players that were just so much better than the other players. And then I would say right around the time of that trade and around Dallas Cowboys, that's when it started to get more intriguing because you really didn't have a clear picture of who was going to be drafted in what spot.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Tua. Tua, he's been working really, really hard. He's been posting stuff on social media, how he's been in the gym every single day, and he's turned into this explosive quarterback with injury after injury, and he's just gotten back up. Zach, how do you think he's going to fit in to the Miami offense now?
Well, obviously, I think it's the exact same mindset as the Cincinnati Bengals at the moment. You are looking for a guy who can lead the rebuild and put yourself into some sort of winning percentage again. The Dolphins, they are looking for a guy to really take the reins ever since 24 years ago, Dan Marino. They have been looking, searching, and coming up way short every year, other than, obviously, for some reason, taking down the Patriots consistently. Other than that, the Dolphins have been drug in the mud for years. And Tua Tagovailoa coming in and second half of the championship and national championship, from there, he really made a name for himself. And from there, I mean, he's explosive, had a fantastic arm on him. Arm strength, arm accuracy is not a problem. The injuries, however, obviously are. So you got to, obviously, he's got to start working in that aspect, working with trainers, making sure everything he can, and maybe the Dolphins start looking as their draft picks, maybe go to more offensive linemen. Try to bring up something, just put a brick wall, kind of like just what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just did. You just got another offensive lineman to be able to handle anybody that could go after your weak quarterback, such as Tom Brady. You don't see him running very much. I don't see Tagovailoa running very much, considering he has that in the back of his mind. Hey, it's a good chance I get hurt here again. And there goes my, season or two. So maybe that's the mindset from here on out for the Miami Dolphins is, hey, now that we got him, we need to back him up. And but as far as Tagovailoa, congrats, welcome to the NFL. But the arm strength, everything's there. He has a great mentality of the game. He knows what to do and where to throw, and does it with precision, with extreme consistency. But it's always going to linger in the back of the mind. As for most local folks know, as Antonio Romo later in his career, getting better and better, as statistics show, and yet getting hurt more and more. And you don't want to see that out of a kid fresh out of college.
No, and you're totally right, Zach. What a lot of teams were doing, that teams that were set, basically what they wanted was to beef up that line. And that's what the Saints did. That's what Tampa Bay did. Let's go a little bit back local to the Cowboys, but I want to talk about Miami. So we just talked about Tua getting drafted to Miami. Miami also picked up Austin Jackson, an offensive tackle from USC. Connor, do you think that the Cowboys are shaking in their boots a little bit with Miami, on the horizon, and all those other teams kind of getting stacked?
For the Cowboys' sake, if they can draft a couple defensive players, I think they could take the pressure off of them a little bit. But I wouldn't be. I mean, it takes more than just 3 or 4 players to build a dynasty. and the Cowboys already had more players than Miami had. So I don't think they're worried at all. But you obviously have to be aware of who else is getting drafted, what they're building, and why, and like what they're trying to get out of those players. Because if they're building a really good offensive line, and then they have Tua coming in, then they're obviously trying to protect Tua, and they're trying to keep him sustained so they can have good success throughout however many years you want to look at. But for the Cowboys, I wouldn't be worried if I were a Cowboy fan at Miami. Miami still has a lot more issues than what the Cowboys have. Now, for the Cowboys, it's obviously defense, as we already discussed. But they definitely have to get that. They definitely have to fix their defense. They have to get some younger guys, because it's not just about the now. It's also about the future. And we're seeing, especially with teams that are rebuilding, Cincinnati, Miami, I can go on that list. They're looking at total rebuilds, which means they're looking to get younger players to keep them longer. And so I think the Cowboys and I think other teams should go on that same route, especially if they have more older players.
All right, before we wrap it up, round two is tonight. So Zach, I'm going to ask you first. I'll ask you as well, Connor. What player are you expecting to go first in this round two to what team?
I've been actually looking at a lot of projections as to what Cincinnati could actually do next.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback. You hope that does, and that works wonders for you. I think you got to go to the defensive side of things. It's projected that it'll be edge rusher from Penn State, Uter Gross Matos, and I believe he fits the bill. Any sort of edge rusher, you got to beef up that defense and get that ball back into Joe Burrow's hands as much as you can. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals, I know we keep relating back to the Dallas Cowboys, but I think they're almost in the same boat. You got your quarterback, not completely in the same boat as Dallas, but now you just beefed up on offense. I think a lot of these offensive powerhouse teams now are starting to look more the defensive side of things. Okay, well, we need to clean up here. Dallas, they just need to clean up just a couple of areas. Cincinnati, they need to really clean up a lot of areas. 2-14 is unacceptable. So you fix the offensive side of things with your man leading the charge in Joe Burrow. I think you go with Matos here from Penn State as an elite edge rusher here in early round two, because defense is going to appear big here in the AFC now, as a lot of good teams from the NFC, but the AFC is building as well. The Chargers getting Justin Herbert. Meanwhile, Philip Rivers goes to Indianapolis. So big trades have been made and the puzzles have been moved around. So the AFC is still there. It's still alive and functioning. And so the defense for the Bengals needs to step up as well, because right now it looks like they might have found their golden boy with Joe Burrow.
All right, Connor, what about you? Round two, first pick.
I would have actually had the same exact player that Zach had, so I'm going to change it up just a little bit. So I'm going to go instead with an offensive lineman, because if you have a quarterback, like you said, Zach, he's the golden boy. He's going from a Bayou Bengal to a Cincinnati Bengal. So you need to protect your future, and I'm going to go with an offensive lineman. I'm going to say one of the 4 offensive linemen that are going to the draft from LSU. Why not? I mean, they're friends with Joe Burrow. They know Joe Burrow. There are 4 LSU linemen currently right now that are looking to get drafted. I think it'd be a perfect match. They already know each other, and with the virus right now, there wouldn't have to be as much communication between them, because they're already familiar with their play styles. To me, I just think it's already a picture perfect scenario with Joe Burrow going back home to Cincinnati. So why not have an offensive lineman that you're already friends with to make this picture perfect ending to Joe Burrow's end of his college career into the NFL, make it even that much more of a Hallmark kind of movie, if you will.
All right, I guess that's going to wrap up our 4th episode of Sports Zone on our new virtual platform. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and talking about the NFL draft with me. By far, one of my favorite episodes of my favorite night of football. Catch us next week, and stay home and stay safe.